Welcome to the Equinety Podcast, where horse owners just like you share their incredible Equinety stories and how Equinety is changing their horses' lives. Whether you're searching for something to give your performance horse better focus, faster recovery, and more stamina, or in the extreme case where all hope seems lost, give your horse what it needs to help heal at a cellular level, you'll find it here. So jump in on today's episode to hear how Equinety is helping horses worldwide. Now, welcome your host, John Dowdy.
Hello and welcome to this week's Equinety Podcast. We're swinging out into the Show Me State of Missouri. We've got Jenn Van Booven on the call this week. Jenn, welcome to the Equinety Podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, it's always a pleasure, and we're going to be talking about three different horses today, getting into founder, thin walls, cracked hooves, one with a cribber, ulcers, high-strung. So different ages from 6 to 9 to 17. So Equinety Horse Excel and Equinety Ultimate OEC are the two products, our only two products that we're going to be talking about. And we'll talk about the issues that were going on with your horses, how you found the Equinety Horse Excel, because that's what you started with initially. And then later you added the Ultimate OEC. So before we get into that, give us a little bit of your background, and let's just start there.
Okay, so I, of course, from Missouri. I generally enjoy the training process of horses, but I do barrel race. My main focus, though, is getting them to that point to go on with in the barrels. I don't really consider myself a intense competitor because I enjoy just getting them to that point. But that's my main thing as far as horses go. I'm pretty low-key horse owner, just try to do the right thing for them and make them good contributing members of society, really.
Yes.
And then as far as what I do for work, I used to be an esthetician and nail tech for 10 years. And then I actually got into doing custom metal signs using a plasma cutter with a CNC router because my husband's in heating and cooling. And so I just work from home now. So
yes.
It's, kind of a flip-flop for a different world.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's fun. Yeah.
So before you were caring for the nails, now you got to watch them as you're running the
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, let's get into, we're going to be talking about three horses. Let's first start off with Maverick, who's a 6-year-old. And I hear you can win horses just from a drawing. Is this true?
Yeah, you just buy random draw spots on Facebook for some of these horses, and sometimes it just works in your favor.
Well, tell us about this little guy.
So actually, he's a really big guy. He's a very well-bred quarter horse, and he's probably 16 two hands.
Oh, wow.
He's massive horse, big boned and just really pretty. You know, he's that iconic like Disney princess horse, black with the white blaze, and of course, catches my eye. I need him.
Yes, and so why not win a free horse in a drawing?
Right.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, he's great temperament. He was actually sent to the track as a 2-year-old, and he wasn't very successful at it. And then there's about a 2-year gap in his storyline where we just don't know much about him. I think he was turned out to pasture. And then the girl that I won him from bought him pretty much sight unseen and came to her with some hoof problems that she did some interrogating and found that he had a 1-degree rotation in his foot that was just making him a little bit off while she rode him. And then that's where she really didn't want to deal with the maintenance of keeping that wedge shoe and things like that, going to a specific farrier that could do that for her. So that's why she listed him for sale and landed in my lap. So
right.
then of course, I started doing a little bit more digging on what I could do for him to make this a little bit better problem, even for the farrier.
Mm-hmm. So as you went along, what are some of the issues that were popping up and things that you were finding along the way?
So the main thing with him was talking to my farrier was he had no sole. There was hardly anything to even tack a shoe on with to keep a wedge on, or to, just to get him to a comfortable point. There was not a lot we could even work with. So I was digging on how to get the hoof growth, and I've always used supplements that had a lot of biotin in it to get it to grow. But I was finding that, it helps the hoof wall grow out, but structurally it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I needed. I needed more internally for him, because with him being such a big guy, it seemed like it was more about his metabolism, and of course not having a workload because he was uncomfortable on his foot. So I just needed to find something that was a little bit more cellular, more internal than it was just hoof wall.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep. So how quickly, so you started on the Horse Excel. Were you on the hunt for a product or something different than what you've been using, and that's how you came across the Horse Excel?
Yep. I was just looking for other things. And of course, I'm a trier, so I'll read through ingredients. For the most part, I have a good understanding of what most of them do. But as far as results, I was just looking for something a little bit more. And with, it seems like with biotin, you just have to wait so long to see the results, because of course it doesn't really affect anything until you see that new growth. So with the slow results, I'm like, I need something more. So what I really liked about the XL2 was the fact that there was no starches and sugars, because my other horses, of course, have ulcers and things like that you want to stay away from as well. So this was my first, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot, and we'll see how long it takes. Right. I've got the time, because it's either going to be that or biotin that I know is going to take a long time. Yeah. So that's why I dove into the XL.
Yeah. And then, so how long did it take before you started seeing results?
I had him on the XL. My farrier came out, and then I started him that day on the XL. It came in the mail. So then my farrier scheduled every 6 weeks. And then at the next 6 weeks, my farrier commented how much better we had hoof. He had so much more to work with. The sole was much more grown in. There was that white line that they used for the nails was much, much thicker. He had a lot more to work with there too. And when he had come out, his shoes had only stayed on about 2 weeks. And then the next shoeing that he had, they stayed on 4 weeks, so there was a lot more there too that was working in our favor as well. So, and that was the only thing that I had changed in his diet too, was just adding that XL to his feed.
Yeah. So was that pretty common with him up to that point, holding shoes for about 2 weeks? And that was about it? Yep. So
that was it. That was all we got.
Yeah. So the only thing you changed was adding the Horse Excel, and then they stayed on for 4 weeks the next time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Are they staying on longer now that it's been, about 3 months?
Yes, but now we're having a whole nother episode with Maverick got injured and ran into a stall door, and of course opened his shoulder up, and we had to do stitches. So that now he's been on stall rest and been on dry ground, and so we got a little bit.
Yes. Well, what would you expect?
Scenario,
yes. But what would you expect from a free horse?
Yeah. I got to pay for it somehow.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, you brought up something interesting before, and I would like to go a little bit more into depth on that, because it'll tie right into the next horse with, that's kind of battled vertical cracks in the hooves and thin walls and things. So with your background of being, in the nail business on the human side, give us your knowledge of what biotin just in general, and what exactly that's doing, when you would recommend it, and those types of things, and then that can translate over into the hoof walls and the hooves generally.
Sure. So when I was doing nails for people, just women in general, a lot of times, they want their nails to grow out. And a lot of the struggle that people would have would be their nails chipping and things like that, but they would blame products that we put on it. And I would tell them, I'm like, okay, I think we have more of an internal factor here, because when nails have ridges, that shows that there's something more going on. And then, of course, when you get a ridge, then you get a weak point. And then once they get grown out to a certain point, they're just going to chip. They don't have any structure. So initially, biotin is always what we would prescribe to get nails to grow out a lot faster. Hair, skin, nails, you always link with biotin. But I would ask them a little bit more questions about what they have going on internally. And it seemed like anytime anybody would be on antibiotics, that's where you would see a nail. Anytime anybody would change even their diet, you would get a ridge. And then you just get this downfall over and over again through their nails. So until they would actually get something balanced internally to find that actual deep structure from where the nail is growing out, you wouldn't actually get a healthy nail. So yes, the biotin helped it grow, but until we actually targeted the internal factor, we weren't ever going to get that healthy nail consistently.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. And when you understand what the Equinety Horse Excel is doing, and for those tuning in, what the Equinety Horse Excel is, it's 100% pure amino acids. There's no fillers, no sugars, no starches, and there's no loading dose. A serving size is 5.2 grams, which is about like a teaspoon. Just put it right on top of the horse's feet. And what's really interesting with this product is it doesn't fit into a specific supplement category. In other words, it's not, quote, a hoof supplement, and it's not a, quote, joint supplement or calmer or muscle builder or shiny coat or soft tissue, or it's not really fitting into any one of those. What it's specifically designed to do is give the body what it needs to help release its own repairing hormones from the pituitary gland. And when you can do that, have the body release its own hormones, it's the body that sends its own hormones to its own problem areas. And this is why it helps in so many ways. And being on the market now for about 7 years, the hoof growth, sole depth is one of the many, many benefits that you get out of this product. And one of the things I like about these podcasts, and in this case, we're talking about 3 different horses, and the third horse has great feet. So that's not where the horse needed or needs any help with. But by giving him the product, it helped in a lot of other ways. And so we'll get into that. So that's a little background of the product, what it's doing. Just 1 scoop a day is perfectly fine. Scoop in the morning as an example. It absorbs really quickly, and those hormones are released. Now, the hormones have a 23.5-hour life cycle. So what that means is if you give a scoop in the morning and then you give a scoop the following morning, the natural hormone release, those hormones are back to where they would normally be for that age of a horse. And so a lot of times, especially with working performance horses or a horse that's injured and you're trying to bring back from a recovery, a scoop in the morning and a scoop in the evening will help speed up that recovery time because you're keeping the hormone levels elevated. So that's all the nitty gritty behind the Equinety Horse Excel. And in this first example, we were talking about a foundered horse, thin sole, just in this, from the time the farrier was there, and then 6 weeks later, there was already huge difference just in those 6 weeks. So let's get into the next horse who's 17 by the name of Oakley. Tell us about this one.
So Oakley, I've had him for 10 years. He's also an off-the-track horse. bred-wise, he's probably a horse away from being considered appendix. So he's got a lot of thoroughbred in him, which is known for having very finicky hooves, and needs that perfect, everything needs to be perfect for his hooves to be perfect. And that's not Missouri weather. We've got mud, and then we've got dry. It just flip-flops back and forth, and that it just takes a toll on his feet really, really bad every year, especially in the fall. Once we come out of the dry weather and then go into the wet fall weather, that's where the cracks come in, and I almost have to stop riding him because I'm afraid they're just going to fall apart. And so, of course, my farrier, is doing all he can to create more structure for his hoof too. And I've, of course, used lots of different hoof supplements for him to try to prevent it. And then, of course, once the cracks start happening, try to help it grow out as fast as we can too.
Sure.
So with him, of course, since I already got the XL for Maverick, the 6-year-old, of course, I'm just going to go ahead and give it to Oakley as well. And he actually, his cracks in the vertical cracks in his hooves right now are really pretty good. They're superficial all the time. There's no real deep fissures until that late fall, and that's when I worry about them. But right now they're just a real thin line that we're really maintaining.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the XL has been a big part of that. But he also has injured himself somehow or another and has a horizontal crack right along the coronary band. And that happened right when I started feeding him the XL as well. And it was, I went ahead and I'm like, okay, we got this XL going. I want to go ahead and document and monitor what's happening here. And I went ahead and took a picture. It was probably a week after I'd initially found the horizontal crack by his heel, and then took it again in 3 weeks before he was due for his next shoeing. And it had already grown out an inch, maybe an inch and a quarter downward.
Yeah.
So, and not, it hadn't been expanding across or anything like that. You can also see ridges in his foot of where I changed his supplement as well. So you can even see the change in his diet as far as that goes too. So his feet, of course, we're in maintenance mode, we're maintaining, but it hasn't been getting worse, where for some reason Missouri in July has been a swamp. So at this point, I would have expected his feet to be falling apart, but they are really maintaining that structure that we need for him, especially at 17 years old.
Yeah, so. No doubt. Well, and I've got these pictures that you sent over to me. It is incredible in just 3 weeks how far down that crack has gone down. Like you said, an inch and a quarter.
Yeah.
And I'll post this on our website at teamequinety.com. We have a link on there for our podcast. So I'll post this picture in the transcription of the podcast so people can get a look of it. But it's quite impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was really excited to get to monitor that portion too, because a lot of the times you kind of just go along with, is it working? But that line for sure was a good marker to really tell what that supplement was doing for him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's right. Now, going back to your farrier, who now has witnessed 2 different horses and seems to be on the impressed side. Anytime they have something to work with. And I tell people all the time, this Equinety Horse XL, it's not a miracle supplement. However, it has shown to do some pretty miraculous things. But,
right.
The one example I give is, you could have the best farrier on the planet standing in front of your horse, but if there's nothing to work with, what are you supposed to do? And, right. I know in our conversation, your comments to him is, well, just do whatever you can. I mean, what else are they supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
And so by adding the Equinety Horse XL, we've just seen it time and time and time again. It's given the body what it needs to help repair itself from the inside out. And so it's going to help get that a stronger, healthier, faster growing hoof, sole depth and everything, which ultimately is giving your farrier more to work with in a shorter amount of time. And so,
Right.
it's great for that benefit. And there's so many other benefits along with it as well. That's just in these two examples with the hoof quality. So let's get into the third one here, who has great feet, but has other things going on.
Yes. So brother is a 9-year-old, and he's another off the track quarter horse. But he's intense. Like, his energy is just so high all the time. He's a cribber. You know, he's not buddy sour, but he's buddy dependent is what I call him. So when you take a horse away from him, he just gets just flustered. He doesn't do anything really stupid, but he'll weave a little bit and just, he'll start sweating. He's very ulcer prone, and just all of those things that go along with that type of hot-blooded horse. So he just needs calm.
Yeah.
Everything for him is just targeted towards calm down. So
yeah, that's interesting. So you, as we were talking before, we were all recording the podcast, you had been giving the Equinety Horse Excel for a good couple months, but you weren't really doing a lot of work with them. So it's not that you noticed a lot of stuff, but he also was prone to coughing, and different things. So was it at that point you decided to add the Equinety Ultimate OEC?
Yeah. So before working with brother, because he's high energy, he needed a lot more intense training as well. And so on those days that, it'd be hot or anything like that, I would find that he had a hard time catching his breath, and he would cough. I couldn't really target it if it was just dusty arena, or if we have more underlying, maybe he's a bleeder, things like that type of issues. So then, of course, the springtime, we had a big low in my riding just because life, kid in baseball and everything like that. But when I would bring him out to work him, of course, I had to work him hard because it was few and far between works and things like that. But he wouldn't cough. I could just pick up to the next drill or whatever we needed to do because he was catching his breath so much faster as well.
Sure.
So conditioning wise, he wasn't in super shape to make up for that, that recovery rate. So I was like, you know what? I think it's the supplement. So, and I looked into the OEC because of the colloidal silver, and I knew just with background of ingredient knowledge how much healing effect it had. And with him having ulcers, I really wanted a product that had that particular ingredient in it. Of course, the vitamin E is just another bonus for immune support for him as well. So I was really excited to start incorporating that with him too.
Mm-hmm.
And just noticing the difference in his mental capacity of being calm, without his buddies around, a lot more focus when I did work him. He's kind of one of those that you almost think his feet just work faster than his mind. And I found that he was just a lot easier to work through with drills. We didn't have to, come back, like, calm down, come to me or anything. He would just work through it, not get all flustered and things like that with him as well.
Sure.
So,
yeah. I would say that's pretty common feedback we've received with horses that have stress, anxiety, or a bit spooky. Even with using the Horse Excel, the amino acids, we've heard of complete demeanor changes in as little as 2 or 3 days. Some of the other things that we've getting a lot of feedback by adding the Ultimate OEC, the horses are doing great on the Equinety Horse Excel, but maybe they still have a cough or they're tying up or they didn't want to drink while they were being hauled. And when they added the Ultimate OEC to it, these two products, the combination just seemed to be the missing puzzle piece. And being on the market for 7 years with the Equinety Horse Excel, about 3 years ago, Dr. Brugan, who's out of Arkansas, a mobile vet out there, he absolutely loved the Equinety Horse Excel and had been using it for about a year. And he calls me up and he says, "Hey, have you ever thought about coming out with another product?" And I said, "Well, not for the sake of coming out with one. It would have to make sense with what we have and work with what we have. The Horse Excel is just amazing." And he says, "Yeah, that makes sense." He goes, "Well, here's what I have in mind. I like oils." I went, "Are you serious right now?" I go, "You obviously know how many oils are on the market." He goes, "I know." He goes, "But nothing like what I have in mind." I said, "Okay, what do you have in mind?" He says, "Well, a lot of people that are using oils, for whatever the reason they're using them for, the quality of the oil isn't good. In other words, it's very high in omega-6s, so you're causing a lot of inflammation, which is really defeating the whole purpose of giving them the oil in the first place. And so what we want to use is a flaxseed-based omega-3 oil, which is going to help reduce inflammation. And there's all kinds of benefits that go along with using omega-3 oils. So that's first and foremost. The second ingredient is natural cold-pressed vitamin E. And a lot of people use vitamin E, but they might be using synthetic, which you might as well just pour that on the ground because the horse can't use that. And so the Ultimate OEC has 1,000 international units of cold-pressed natural vitamin E. And then the third component, which you mentioned, is the colloidal silver. And there are so many benefits to that, helping with horses drink while they're being hauled, ulcer issues, and the combination of these three ingredients. It's not that there's anything proprietary, I guess you could say, or unique, because there's products on the market that have one or two of the three. We just put all three together, and this is what we have. And working in combination with the Horse Excel is just really proven to be a really, really strong combination, and it just is solving a lot of problems out there. So now, I didn't ask you this before, and we get this, I would say, from time to time in regards to cribbers. Have you found that it's helped his cribbing at all, or what have you found there?
I have noticed he doesn't crib as bad when he's in turnout. But I call it he just smokes. He gets his smoking.
Yeah.
Like after he eats is when he really cribs. And I have noticed a lot of times he'll take a bite and then he'll crib, and then he'll take a bite and then he'll crib. But here lately, he doesn't. He'll actually eat all the way through, and then he'll go and have his cigarette and crib a little bit after he gets done eating. Yeah. But he can actually eat all the way through his portion without stopping to go have his cigarette. So
that's funny. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, and that could just be a little bit on the habit side too, or the smoking the cigarette. That's funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, we've had a lot of people through the years that have reported to us that just the Equinety Horse Excel, because we've been on 7 years with that, so it's helped a lot of cribbers. Not in every single scenario, but more times than not, it just helps in so many situations. But and that's the other thing too. We recommend, when you're going to try the Equinety Horse Excel, it starts working very quickly. The vast majority of people see changes in 30 days or less. And, we recommend don't change anything you're doing. Just add this to it. And then that way it's only one element you've changed. And then over the next couple weeks to 30 days, you can make decisions on whether to reduce or stop using other things. If you're, been in a position where you're iffy if those things are really working or not, whatever they might be. But, and then being able to add the Equinety Ultimate OEC is a game changer as well, that just working in combination. So there's two things. The Equinety Horse Excel, we're giving that to the body to help repair at the cellular level. The Ultimate OEC is serving two purposes. One, to work in combination with the Horse Excel to give those repaired cells some nutrition. And in addition, it just serves as a really powerful antioxidant, which helps reduce inflammation, in short. So,
right.
Awesome.
The other thing that I really liked about the ingredients and how they're made is the delivery to the horse, as well as far as going to the pituitary gland instead of going all the way through the gut, because we know horses' guts, especially the ulcery, high acidic ones, it just breaks down most of the supplement before it can even affect the horse in general.
Yes.
So whenever we're actually working on the hormones of the horse, it makes so much more sense than trying to get it all the way through the horse's digestive system. So that was my other big reason for starting that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And even to break that down a little bit more, when a horse eats protein, amino acids are the building blocks of protein. So when they eat protein, that protein molecule is too big to be absorbed. And so the body has to break all that down into amino acids before it can get absorbed. And that's what you're talking about. It takes a long time. Plus it's in an acidic environment. With the Equinety Horse Excel, and we're only talking a teaspoon, it absorbs very, very quickly within, an hour or so, just right. Yeah. And so then it goes right to work. And that's what we're after. We need fast absorption. And then the pituitary is releasing the hormones. Now, one of the common questions when people hear that, they say, well, is it safe for Cushing's horses? And yes, it is, because again, we're helping the body to release, balanced hormone levels. So we've had a lot of really great feedback from Cushing horse owners. It helps them shed out faster. Often it helps get rid of that crustiness that's going on if they have that, and just makes for an overall well-balanced horse from the inside out. So, Jenn Van Booven out of Missouri, thank you so much for taking the time to share your stories here on the Equinety Podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all for this episode of the Equinety Podcast. For more information on purchasing Equinety, be sure to visit our website at teamequinety.com, where you'll also find product information as well as more testimonials on how others have seen amazing results by implementing Equinety into their horse's supplement regime. We'll have more stories on how Equinety is helping horses worldwide right here on a future episode of the Equinety Podcast.